Hello and welcome to Freedom Watch, your daily dose of raw liberty online at foxnews.com/freedomwatch. I'm Judge Andrew Napolitano here, defending freedom, defending your natural rights, and defending your right to have a government that stays within the confines of the Constitution. Last month in riot gear, police beat John McKenna senseless on a street near the University of Maryland after a night during which thousands of students were celebrating in the streets after a win by Maryland's basketball team. Take a look at this surveillance video. Cops reported some students were rioting and that McKenna was attacking a cop on horseback. Surveillance video shows, however, that McKenna was defenseless when being beaten. That would seem to settle the issue, except for one thing. When McKenna's defense lawyers subpoenaed the police surveillance videos of the area that night, all of them were supplied except the video from the camera pointing in the direction of McKenna and the beating. Police say it was a technical error and that the camera just happened to record over that footage. In a further odd coincidence, the campus cop in charge of that video surveillance is married to one of the cops on horseback who claims to have been assaulted before the cops in turn beat up McKenna. Joining me now is Reason Magazine senior editor Radley Balco, who writes frequently about police excesses and miscarriages of justice, topics after my own heart. Radley, welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Glad to be back, Judge.
All right, so what happened here? I mean, he was exuberant like everybody else was. Did he do anything even remotely worthy of a savage beating by police on a public street?
Well, not from the video, he certainly didn't. And, you know, like in a lot of these cases where we have a police beating, McKenna was the one who was actually charged. He was charged with disorderly conduct. That charge was actually dropped yesterday, I believe, but that's more than a couple months after it happened. One other correction to your introduction. After some public pushback, they did manage to find the video from that particular camera.
Right.
But,
and was all of it there?
No, they by some, I guess, another technical error apparently. The 2 minutes, the most important 2 minutes of the video, the 2 minutes that showed McKenna getting beaten, were somehow erased from the video.
All right. Nobody could seriously believe that this was just a coincidence. So was this case dropped because the police didn't want to be embarrassed in front of a judge, or did a judge look at this and say to the prosecutor, where are you going with this? You better move for a dismissal.
I believe the prosecutor dropped the case, but, you know, I don't really think that's enough. I mean, I think that the head of the campus security that you mentioned was married to one of the officers. I mean, I think there needs to be a criminal investigation here, because if that 2 minutes was erased intentionally, that's obstruction of justice. It's criminal charges.
Absolutely. It's obstruction of justice under Maryland law. It's obstruction of justice under federal law. Big picture, Radley, because you look at this stuff so frequently and see so much more of it than the rest of us do. Are the police in the United States becoming militarized, or is that too much of a generalization to draw from the evidence you've seen?
No, I mean, I think there is a much more militaristic attitude among police departments. You can't obviously include all of them in that, but I think generally there is a much more kind of us versus them kind of warlike mentality that I think has really been driven by politicians who, like to declare war on everything that they can't control, from drugs to terrorism to crime.
I have a friend who keeps reminding me to use the phrase, the camera is the new gun. And whenever you deal with police or whenever you deal with anybody in the government, you want to film it. Do you know of any recent incidents in which somebody filmed the police doing something and some sort of bizarre, brutal retaliation was taken because of that in the state of Maryland, same state where this incident occurred that we're now looking at?
Yeah, in fact, the same week that this McKenna case made national news, there was a guy who was pulled over on a motorcycle by a Maryland state trooper who was off duty, actually, in civilian clothes. And, the guy was apparently sort of acting like an idiot on his motorcycle, speeding and popping wheelies. But in the video, the police officer pulls his gun on the guy and, arguably probably went overboard. But the guy posted the video on YouTube, as he was allowed to do under Maryland state law. And the police raided the guy's parents' home the next day at 6:45 in the morning. Handcuffed everyone, held his family up for 90 minutes, rifled through their belongings. The guy was arrested and jailed for 26 hours for violating the state's eavesdropping law, which he didn't. A judge released him the next day and said he hadn't violated any law. But, again, Judge, this is not, the fact that the charges were dropped isn't good enough. If you're held for 26 hours and your home is raided and your belongings are confiscated and you haven't broken any law, there need to be consequences for the authorities that did that.
Absolutely. And I think I am rarely one to defend federal intrusion into local matters, but this is the reason we have a 14th Amendment, is to make sure that local and state governments can't get away with this. And I will tell you from my own experience, there is nothing those police who beat McKenna or the police who raided the parents' house of the young man who filmed a public event would fear more than having to explain what they did to a judge and jury in a federal court where the sanctions are extraordinary for this kind of a violation of civil liberties. What do you think?
No, I completely agree with you, Judge. But let me add one other thing here, and that is that what this guy did, the guy on the motorcycle, was legal under Maryland law, and he was wrongly arrested and jailed. But in a lot of states, it actually is illegal under state law to audio or video record a police officer while he's on duty. And in fact, I'm actually on my way to Illinois right now to report on a case. Under Illinois state law, it is a Class 1 felony to record video or audio record a police officer while he's on duty. And you could be punished by 4 to 15 years in prison.
I would think,
for that.
I would think, in light of some of the current Supreme Court's recent decisions on the First Amendment, those laws, when challenged in the right forum, will fall. Radley Balco, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Judge.